Good morning, everyone. I just did. Good morning, Facebook Live. Good morning, Everyday Center for Spiritual Living, wherever you are connecting with us. And I am so excited to have this opportunity to connect. Shelley, I'm not asking you to come back to the screen, but that was so exquisitely beautiful, and thank you, Joseph, for your incredible accompaniment. It was exquisitely beautiful. And of course, it is appropriate for there to be a sacred honoring of Martin Luther King's life, which is celebrated as a national holiday, as it should be, tomorrow. And there really, there's really no way to encapsulate that life. There's no way to encapsulate that life. And from everything that I have read about him, he would say, I just did what I was called to do. I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just did what I was called to do. So what is it that we are called to do? Because we are, Now don't get scared. This doesn't mean that you're all on your way to ministerial school or some other huge commitment that you don't have time for, or any of those things. But I think it's good for us to know what we're called to do. And what we're called to do is to be the person we are today and to live our greatest life. To live our greatest life. Now, that may conflict with any of your ideas about responsibility, because there may not be time in your mind for living your greatest life and taking care of all of the other things that you take care of. But if that's the case, we have it backwards. We have it backwards. We have been exploring over the last couple of weeks the first two sections of the Science of Mind textbook. And today we are diving in to section 3, which is what it does. Now the it, as everyone who has at least been along for the journey this far, the it that I'm speaking of is what we might call God, Spirit, the universe, the cosmos, whatever our favorite name might be. Goddess, whatever. Doesn't matter what we call it, we're the ones who need to name things and put them in a certain kind of box. Doesn't matter what we call it. And what it does because we've been talking about it being the one life and it being all of creation. And so, of course, if we're thinking of it in terms of, and I've used this expression the last 2 weeks, if we're thinking in terms of creator, the activity of creation, and the creation itself, you might imagine that what I'm going to talk about today is the activity of creation. But that's pretty obvious. You know, if we are at all ever in our life near a window, or we're out of doors and we see at other times of years flowers and trees and nature happening and other people around and so on, we see the activity of creation. I don't know if I mentioned this exactly this way before. I know I've mentioned it in some context during the past couple of weeks. I have 2 goals here in talking about the basics of science of mind during the month of January. One goal is for each and every one of us to find something in what we hear this time, because we may have heard this all before, read it all before, but to find something in what we hear or we feel or we connect with this time that opens a door that wasn't previously open, that opens a window that wasn't previously open, that gives spirit greater access to us. In Reverend Diana Lee's reading, one of the things that she read from Ernest Holmes that was so perfectly connected with where I'm, or at least where I think I'm going today, is that we are not waiting on God. We are not waiting for spirit to show up, for life to show up and save us or take care of a situation. God is waiting on us, because going back to the basics, there is one life. It is all life. It is all that we are, whether we know it or not, whether they know it or not. It is all that everything is. It expresses through all of these gazillions of ways. So that life is already perfect, whole, complete, alive, filled with energy and grace and abundance and possibility, just hanging out in and around us and as us, waiting for us to say yes. What are we saying yes to? We're saying yes to giving up. This is the second thing that is my goal for this month. We're saying yes, not only to our good, Hallelujah, it's about time. We're saying yes not only to our good, we're saying yes to giving up whatever mythologies of lack, limitation, not enoughness, needing some kind of special hocus pocus to pull it all together and make it work. We're saying yes to giving up the old mythologies, including whatever old mythologies we may have been holding about science of mind. Because there are plenty of those as well. There are plenty of those. And how did those happen? Because people happened. That's how they happened. Different teachers happened. Different interpretations happened. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. How did any of our precious, and I use the word precious on purpose, precious beliefs happen? Well, because stuff happened. You know, a relationship may have gone sideways once or twice, or, you know. We may have been, I'm not going to get into parentage and grandparentage and all of that, but we may have, at our very first job, we may have had a tyrant for a boss. And that so deeply impacted us that to this day we have a problem with authority. Who cares how or when? I'm sorry. This is not a class about psychology. It doesn't matter for our purposes when or who happened. What matters is what we decide today. Because today we are what? We are new. Scientific fact. We are new today. And what matters is if we want our life to change, to shift, to improve, to feel enhanced, if we want our life to feel more exciting and more engaging, and for us to feel like we have more to give, because we may really feel exhausted from giving. And that's a whole different conversation. Although I must ask the question, if we're feeling exhausted from giving, how much receiving have we been doing? Just asking. It is a balance. It's intended to be a balance. In fact, in my very favorite passage from the Old Testament, God is quoted as saying, "Prove me now. Just go ahead. Test me. And see if there is any limit to my giving. And I will fill your storehouse to such a degree that it cannot be held." So back to mythologies. In the chapter that or the section that we're discussing today, what it does. One of the mythologies about life, God, spirit, the universe, is that if we pray right, if we use the right words, if we're solemn enough, whatever it is, that our prayer will be heard. That's mythology number one. Our prayer will be heard and answered as asked. That's mythology number two. Oh, and I'll go to number three while we're in this neighborhood. And mythology number three is, if that's not what happens, it's not God's will for us. Now, wherever we collected that basket full of ideas and beliefs, that's exactly what we've been. Those beliefs are how we have practiced. I mean, science of mind, the teaching of science of mind, the philosophy of science of mind is all about practice, right? We all practice. We all develop a spiritual practice. We all practice at behaving, at choosing in alignment with the life that is living by means of us, right? So, if we're all practicing, then how can there be a wrong prayer? Not according to science of mind rules, because in fact science of mind doesn't have any rules about that. Actually, it doesn't have any rules at all. It has principles that have, through time, proven to be universally true. So how could a prayer be a wrong prayer? There's only one way. Everybody, hang on, because I'm going to tell you what it is. If we say a prayer for someone else's harm, that is using our awareness of all that we are and all that is incorrectly. That is using our authority incorrectly, because we do have authority. We have authority over our life, even though sometimes we might not feel like it. But that's the only time our prayer is heard. Well, of course our prayer is heard. We heard it, right? And where is this life that is the creator of all things? It's right here. It's right there. So of course our prayer was heard. If we heard it, our prayer was heard. Now, this business about if if it doesn't happen, particularly within my time frame, or exactly the way that I intended it to go, then it must not be God's will. Let's clear that one up for good. I have said this before. Doesn't matter. If you finally hear it today and it sticks, that's all that matters. God, the life that is the life of all, the creator of all that we are, all that everything is, all that we have ever been, all that we will ever be, unto, I feel like Buzz Lightyear right now, infinity and beyond, doesn't have a will. I'll give you a minute to, get back in your chair if you happen to fall out of it, or it doesn't have a will. We are the ones who have the will. Free, totally our own, totally in this giant, without sides or top or bottom, playpen that is life, where we can have it as we want it. Not anybody else's life, but our own. So, what does it do? Because the title of this section is what it does. Number one, it continually creates. Continuously. Without interruption. Number two, it does as we say. What? What? Did she just say that the creator of all life does what I say? Yep. That's exactly what I said. And that's no mythology. Well, how can that be? Because I say that right now there's world peace and I don't see any evidence of world peace. Well, no, but do you believe there's world peace? Are you in total faith and trust that by your word it is done? I'm just asking. Because by your word it is done. So, our words are good to be mindful of, just as our thoughts are, and our choices. Because we are, it's coming to me, we're kind of an animated, I can't quite capture a word to describe what's going through my mind, but we're this animated, fabulous creation that says one thing and does another, that practices science of mind principle and then wonders how something is going to resolve or be okay or or manifest in a way that is supportive of what it is that we need. We're this fabulous, amazing, unlimited, irrepressible being that wonders, that doubts. Sorry, I don't mean to be yelling at you. But I want so much for you to know. There's no reason to doubt. There's so much to say about what life does and how it supports itself being all of creation and beyond what we know and what we will ever know. There is so much to say about all of the ways and beyond imagining that provision just is. Think about air. You're all breathing right now, right? I can't see y'all, but I think you're all breathing. And you didn't have to do anything to provide that air. Not a thing. Your hearts are all beating, right? Your eyes are blinking to keep them moist. And you didn't have to do a thing to make any of that happen. Go like this. And that happened just because you decided to tell your fingers, to send the message to your fingers to move. You decided. You decided. So decide. These principles that we are studying, that we are discussing during class and on Sundays, are game changers. Because many of us have grown up and it doesn't matter where we are in that process. We may still not be grown up. But anyway, we've grown up believing in all of these mythologies. That because of our circumstances or because of whatever, that there is limitation. I can't even tell you how many times I have heard somebody say that it's hard to get a job. You know, there's nobody that's hiring anybody over blah blah. Pick your number. You want to bet? There's somebody that's looking for that exact person. And age has nothing to do with it. It only has to do with what somebody fill in the word. Believe. It only has to do with what we believe. We decide. We decide. We decide. You know, it was pretty ingenious. I'm getting a little bit into next week, but it was pretty ingenious that when God, life, the cosmos, the universe, got into the business of expressing, which is what creation, the activity of creation is, that with that came an automated piece that the activity of creating at the divine level. Now, I'm talking about at the divine level. I'm not talking about at the human level. Got me? Because you take all of these attributes that I am talking about in the divine context, and you put them in the human context, and we get to change the rules. At least to a degree. We get to change the roadmap. So anyway, going back to when creation made the choice in its intelligence, energetic consciousness way to get into the activity of creating and expressing, it did so in such a way that things would flow automatically, which is where principle comes from, which is where you occasionally have read in Science of Mind texts or in other New Thought texts or other people's texts, or heard me talk about the law. It's that law was not created separately. It's part of the package. It's part of how creation happens. And that law includes all of the principles that we practice. Plus more, I'm sure. It isn't a law in the human sense. It is something that sets up an automatic behavior, if you will. So, like gravity, it just is. Unless, of course, it isn't. But here, on this plane, we have a gravitational field, which keeps us from flying about. And sometimes I wouldn't mind flying about, but anyway, it also is cause and effect. It is giving and receiving. It is correspondence. It is many things, countless things that support life continuing and creation continuing at our level, at the human level, as life affirming, as expansive. In the science of mind, as Ernest Holmes is writing about what it does, he speaks again and again about, in different words, of course, because he likes saying things in different ways. That all of this divine activity is intended, as it functions through us, to be supportive. And we have to decide. We have to decide. We have to say yes. Diana Lee affirmed, as we all affirmed out loud with her, that we are willing to receive our good. Our willingness to receive our good includes our willingness to receive the good that we are. Will you pray with me, please? Remembering together, there is one life, one power, one presence, one exquisite intelligence, consciousness, energy, that could not help but keep expressing itself. And to this day, it cannot help but express itself and reveal itself. And we are that expression. And the trees are that expression, and the birds are that expression, and the snow is that expression, and our loved ones are that expression, and everything and everyone else, including them, are that expression. Whether or not it is known. In fact, it needs to become less important to us that someone else knows the truth of their being. It needs to become less important to us that someone else, if they knew who they were, if they knew the power that they have, if they knew the love and integrity and gifts and on and on and on that they carry, that they would make other choices or they would live their life differently. That needs to become less important to us, for we are the ones that need to pay attention and are being asked and called to pay attention and to receive the fullness of the gifts that are ours to have. The gifts that are ours to have, including courage, including clarity, including health and wisdom, and beyond anything that we have ever had before. Certainty, confidence, unwavering faith. All of those. Times 10, times 10, times 10. Are our divine heritage. So as I speak this word, knowing my word goes forth and cannot return to me void, it is fulfilled as I have spoken it, and greater. I affirm for everyone who is hearing this message and who takes even the tiniest bit of it in, even the tiniest bit, that this life in which we are new every day is worth living differently, fully, joyfully, with or without a pandemic. It's our choice. We have to decide. And so I do release this word to the law of mind, to its fulfillment, and I let it be, as together we say, and so it is.